Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I oppose the confirmation of Kash Patel to serve as the next director of the FBI. The director of the FBI leads our nation's most important law enforcement agency, made up of more than 38,000 employees. I have tremendous respect for the men and women of the FBI. They take on violent crime. They get fentanyl off our streets. In our state, they have investigated incredibly complex matters, including a case a few years back that was the biggest white-collar case outside of Madoff for years. They have done such a good job, and we are proud of them. I have supported FBI directors under Republican presidents, including President Trump's last nominee, and Democratic presidents. The nonpartisan career public servants at the FBI risk their lives to keep us safe. Their motto, FBI, fidelity, bravery, and integrity. And they deserve a director who respects the work that they do and who embodies the core values of the FBI. That, unfortunately, is not Kash Patel. Let's start with fidelity. A director's loyalty to the American people, the Constitution, and the rule of law is paramount. But Mr. Patel made it abundantly clear that he is loyal to the president, and that is his calls for retribution. When you look back at Mr. Patel's writings, at his interviews, at what he has done in his life, that his focus is the loyalty to the president and not to the people of this country. Mr. Patel has threatened the president's critics. As he said, I quote his words, not just in the government, but in the media, end quote. On one podcast in December 2023, he said, and I quote, "We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly." On a podcast just last August, I know sometimes our colleagues, we have writings or we have interviews of people that are 10, 15 years ago. These are all recent. Just this August, he said, when Trump wins in 2024 and is in power in 2025, we can prosecute them, referring to Justice Department officials. And when I asked him about it in my written questions, he replied about that comment, he replied that, quote, he made those comments in a television interview, not in a court of law or before the committee, as if the venue minimizes the threat. And in fact, at his hearing before this committee, he had opportunity to walk back that threat and others. He chose not to. Nor did he try to explain his so-called deep state list of former government officials, including many Republicans who served in the last Trump administration, including Attorney General Barr, who Republicans on this committee have repeatedly commended for his service. But he is on, Barr is on, Kash Patel's deep state list. He also criticized former CIA Director Gina Haspel, numerous elected officials, including the former head of Veterans Affairs, Dennis McDonough. I remind our colleagues on the other side of the aisle that Bill Barr said about Patel this: Patel has virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency. And his appointment to the FBI, he said a few years back when Patel was being considered for another job in the FBI, his appointment to the FBI would only happen, Barr's words, over his dead body. Then CIA Director Gina Haspel also threatened to resign to stop Patel from being her deputy. These and many others who have criticized him over time are people who have served our country. I didn't always agree with some of them. Some are Democrats, some are Republicans. But they have repeatedly said the same thing, that he should not be running the FBI. And we know what Mr. Patel wants to do with the people on that list because he already told us. On another podcast episode, he said the people on his list need to go to prison. That is a shocking statement from someone who may be the next head of the FBI. And it's not just government officials, but the press as well. As you know, Mr. Chairman, I care deeply about an independent press and the First Amendment. Mr. Patel, though, has referred to the media as, quote, the most powerful enemy the United States has ever seen. He didn't even say that one on a podcast. He said it in a speech at the Conservative Political Action Conference on February 23rd, 2024. Think about that. He is saying that the press, with many here standing up for the First Amendment, he's saying the press is the most powerful enemy the United States has ever had. Not China, not Russia, not Iran, not terrorists, but he says the most powerful enemy is the press. And I would ask my colleagues how they can justify voting for this man who would say such a thing as the director of the FBI that constantly deals with domestic threats that come from afar and come from people who are, in fact, affiliated with terrorist groups in these countries. How do we know Mr. Patel will carry out the revenge agenda? Well, it is already occurring. At his hearing, Mr. Patel did say, quote, all FBI employees will be protected against political retribution. And yet, mere hours after those remarks, the administration forced out 8 of the Bureau's most senior career public servants who serve in nonpartisan roles. One day later, an email was sent to FBI employees requesting a list of everyone who had worked on January 6 cases to determine whether any additional personnel actions are necessary. That's their quote. Think about this. Thousands of agents, maybe people who had just joined the FBI, are asked to work on a case. It happens all the time. Anyone in a workplace knows what I am talking about. But in this case, if you are affiliated with any kind of case that Mr. Patel did not like in the past, well, then you need to be on some list. They get assigned to a case because a violent felony occurred on January 6th. Everyone in this room that was there know exactly what I'm talking about. People assaulted police officers. And now those agents who were simply doing their job find themselves on a list for personnel action. That is not right. That will not make Americans safe, and that will destroy the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This isn't fidelity to the Constitution. This isn't fidelity to the rule of law and impartial law enforcement. It is an affront to it. That's fidelity. Second, bravery. Let's talk about bravery. Now, we all know that Capitol Police showed bravery far and above the call of duty on January 6, 2021. Every one of the members of this committee have talked about the fact that the police officers protected us and were brave. But rather than recognize the officers' bravery, Mr. Patel accused those who testified, officers, on January 6, of lying. When asked if Capitol Police officers told the truth in the January 6 committee hearings, Mr. Patel said, and I quote, no, and lying under oath is a federal offense and they should be investigated for it. Yet he claimed at his hearing that this wasn't accurate. We have it on tape. It's literally on YouTube, on the Joe Pack Show, 5/29/2024 at minute 2:57. You know who else exemplifies bravery? The men and women at the FBI who every day put their lives on the line and keep us safe. What does Kash Patel think of these public servants? He wrote that, again, I quote, the FBI has become so thoroughly compromised that it will remain a threat to the people unless drastic measures are taken, end quote. He has called the men and women who keep us safe, quote, utterly corrupt, and called for a, quote, comprehensive housekeeping, end quote, of the FBI. That's from his book, page 73 and page 85. He also called for shutting down the FBI headquarters, and you know what happens at that headquarters. This is where they coordinate the investigations of complex cases, including terrorism and cyber crimes. Happened on the Sean Ryan Show, 9/2/2024. What are the facts? Under Christopher Wray's leadership, who was a Trump appointee, the morale of the agents and personnel at the FBI has improved significantly. 3 times as many people are applying to the FBI under Christopher Wray's leadership and during his term than when he started. 3 times the number. How can you say there's some horrible corruption? People actually want to go work there. They want to be an FBI agent. They think that it is a job of public service, that is an honorable job. I don't think the FBI is a threat to the people or utterly corrupt, as Kash Patel has said, and I actually don't think our colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle believe this either. I think that they admire the people that work at the FBI. The men and women of the FBI show us every day what it means to embody bravery, and now we need to show them that we can be brave as well and tell the president no. And if our colleagues on the Republican side on this committee will not join us in just saying no one time to the president, maybe some of them will join us in the greater Senate body on the floor. So that brings us to integrity, FBI. The FBI runs on facts. It runs on truth. Without truth, the whole system breaks down. And Mr. Patel in his hearing made abundantly clear why this nation should be so concerned about putting someone in this job for whom there is such a lack of trust. Mr. Patel did not even have the integrity to stand by his own words to this committee. His own words. Repeatedly, I asked about these statements. Own them, man. Just say, yeah, I said it. I believe that. I believe we should shut down the FBI headquarters. I believe they're all corrupt. These are things that he has said, not 10 years ago, not when he was a student, in the last year. Instead of disavowing or providing the explanations for reckless past statements, Kash Patel repeatedly misled this committee, dodged questions, and claimed ignorance, despite the fact that all of his statements are on the record for all of us to see. How can we have an FBI director that doesn't even remember what he said 6 months ago? The director of our nation's most powerful law enforcement agency must be forthright and trustworthy. He must follow the facts and carefully analyze evidence before drawing conclusions. Mr. Patel has made clear that his allegiance is not to the truth. He has put ideology and his loyalty to Donald Trump ahead of the facts. Mr. Chairman, independence of the FBI from the White House is critical. The FBI director has immense power to direct surveillance, investigate American citizens, and recommend when charges be brought. The next director's loyalty must be to the people and not the president. And even if someone was to put in someone who is their friend, which has happened in these jobs in the past, why would you pick this person who has repeatedly maligned the agents that work at the FBI? Why would you pick someone who in the last year decided to make money off of hawking a supplement that he claimed would reverse the effects of the COVID vaccine? Why would you put someone in place that thinks it's fun to say you should close down the headquarters and has put together a list of people that he hates, that he says he wants to take revenge on? Why would you pick that person of all the people you could pick for this office that maybe you even know or you've worked with before? But Donald Trump picked this person, and I think we know why. The fact is, federal law enforcement and the American people deserve a director who embodies the Bureau's model: fidelity, bravery, integrity. The men and the women of the FBI deserve better than this nominee, and I ask our Republican colleagues to stand up for the agents that work there and to stand up and say no once.